Well, he was teetering on the edge of the abyss last night. He couldn't make it just on his last breaths, and suddenly life just came rushing back in. And we're on this afternoon here on the Joe and Joe Weather Show as we wait for the stick of snow to move through on the first band and see what we can get from the second area. All this excitement. It's been that kind of a winter, at least down here so far, right, Bud?
Yes, sir. And my brother-in-law, who lives in Pennsylvania, Brodheadsville, Pennsylvania, which is in the Pocono region, says it's snowing. The roads are coated or covered, and he's sending it our way.
Well, I did hear from Alan Casper this morning, a couple of times actually, and I think he may be watching right now. He reported not too long ago in that sauna along the New Jersey shore, where he's in that stick of snow, got a burst of moderate. He was predicting that it would probably last all of about 30 seconds, but he's all excited because he got to see some moderate snow.
Call that a
And
cheap thrill, right?
yes, and he's sitting here in bated breath, trying to figure out, okay, well, where are we going from here? Uh, Um, you got your snow map. I got my snow map. I'm gonna put them up. The odd thing is that you and I never talk to each other when we do these maps, and yet we came out almost identical, which means that either we're going to be very, very right together or very, very wrong together. So we will start with Mr. Rayo, and I'm going to, by the way, we're focusing on our general local area initially, but of course I'm going to widen out and we'll talk about what's going on everywhere else. So here's your map. I'm going to bring it up on the screen, and then I will bring mine up. So there is yours, and go ahead, go for it.
I, I paid particular attention in this final update here to folks who might be traveling around this weekend into the higher terrain areas, and it would appear that northwestern sections of Connecticut, also up toward the Catskill Park area, that's up in Ulster and straddling over into part of Sullivan County, we could see the highest snow totals, 4 to 6, maybe even as much as in the highest terrain of the Catskills, and they go up quite a bit. 3, 4, 5,000 feet, 4,000 feet. 5,000 is like Mount Marcy, which is up in the Adirondacks. But 3, 4,000 feet, they could be as much as 6 to 8 inches in those high terrain areas. But for the most part, generally, Joe, for the entire Hudson Valley, for much of northern New Jersey, although you know what? In retrospect now, maybe I could have put a 4 to 6 up in the northwest corner of Jersey, up around High Point State Park or Port Jervis, that location, because they're pretty elevated as well. But generally speaking, for the tri-state area, 2 to 4 inches down across Long Island, southern and eastern sections, Suffolk County, for example, maybe only a coating to an inch. Way out east, hardly anything at all, and maybe a straddling of 4 inches or more in parts of northeast Pennsylvania, out where my brother-in-law lives. But generally, it's a 2 to 4 inch total. It's not a paralyzing storm. It's not a crippling storm, but it is, after all, the most significant snowfall that we have seen around here in about 40 or 45 days, going all the way back to the early part of December.
Right. Okay. So, by the way, I'm going to switch to my map, and I have two of them. The just want to make this just want to make this point because Joe's going to be monitoring the chat for questions. If you've got a question, go ahead. Go ahead and put it down. One of the issues that we have is the fact that we don't always get to see the questions on the chat because it's hard for us to both monitor it while it's going on. So if you ask it and we don't get to it, wait till we come back on the full screens later on, and you could ask it again. But it doesn't do you any good to just put it on over and over again because we're probably not going to be able to see it if we don't catch it right away. So just wanted to make that point to everybody. So here's my snowfall forecast map, and when you say Suffolk County on Long Island, the way you have it drawn, you have it mainly for southeastern Suffolk County, where you've got the coating to an inch, and I kind of use Sunrise Highway as my that black line you see there, and then I got a 2-inch stripe that goes up along the North Shore, north of the LIE, back to about New York City. But I did pretty much the same thing, Joe. You've got a 2 to 4 inch band in there, and I kind of lined it up the same way. I split with a 3-inch band in the middle, and also got folks that are watching across parts of southern Pennsylvania, and for here, where we've already seen some snow, first that leading area that moved through on the radar, which I'll bring up momentarily, but looking at generally north of Route 80, it's probably going to be about 4 plus. South of Route 80, the amounts start to tail down a bit. I've got a 3-inch line running from just south of Allentown to Reading to just north of Harrisburg, and then a 2-inch line that runs west of Philadelphia and Trenton, and then just bends back westward, south of Lancaster, and north of Hanover towards Gettysburg, and about an inch down into northern Maryland from Westminster to the northeastern corner of the state to about Wilmington, and then running up through southwest Jersey up to Monmouth County. And then for Allen, of course, I put the stripe of flakes flying, changing to rain right along the beaches of the up and down the New Jersey shore. Now, Joe, I want to take a look at the radar here. I got the wide view first. Let me just freshen it up a bit. And we talked about this for the last 3 days. There was going to be this stick of snow,
Right.
and there's moderate snow in that very narrow band that now is has about reached New York City. And then there's this hole that's in the middle, and then you have this second area that's right behind it. It's now moving into Lancaster, Harrisburg, and eventually will move into points further to the east. There's moderate to heavy snow that is showing up there on a lot of the observations. I'm going to draw in the rain snow line is right about. I noticed that it was raining at Latrobe and at Pittsburgh, so it looks like the rain snow line is right about here, and that's also pushing to the east.
Yeah, and if you recall, Joe, the last few days I've been pointing out that on the NAM 12 and also the NAM 3 kilometer models, and this is off of our tropical tidbits maps, and we again want to thank Mr. Levy for allowing us to use this.
Levi Cowan.
Yes, Levi Cowan on tropical tidbits, the progenitor of this wonderful website. And I've been pointing out that on the NAM 3 and 12 kilometer runs, if you go to the frontogenesis, the 700 millibar frontogenesis map.
Okay, hold on. NAM 3, the frontogenesis 700.
Correct.
And let me get really tight on this. Go ahead. What's up?
And that stick that you referred to, the stick of activity coming in from the south and west, matches very well with the zone of the initial shot of frontogenesis or omega banding or contours. And as you move that along, you can just literally track that stick right through the tri-state area. It's right down the middle of New York by 19Z, and then it shifts on off to the northeast and is away by 21Z, and then there's your opening, that lull, if you will, in the intensity of the snow, followed in again by later in the afternoon and evening by the second round of snow or precipitation, because by then, with southerly winds blowing, southeasterly winds, we're going to see some changes from the snow over to rain from south to north as we get toward the end of the day and into early tonight.
Well, a couple of things that I picked up. I noticed I went through all of the short range models. There's a whole bunch of them on Tropical Tidbits if you take a look at them. And I have to tell you, Joe, I mean, this is at 1 o'clock. This is what the radar is supposed to look like at 1 o'clock this afternoon. I don't think any of the short range models actually did a good job in depicting the radar. I mean, they did Uh, they did pick out on the hole in between. That's been shown for days. But where I think they're lacking, if you look at what the NAM3, which probably has the best presentation of all the short range models today with respect to the radar, a couple of things stand out to me. One is uh, going back to the full radar view. You see the stick of snow here, of course, and you see the gap. But the models seem to be missing out on these echoes that are down in Maryland, near Baltimore, Washington, D.C., south and east over Chesapeake Bay. That southern extension is heading toward the northeast. I also think that it's probably a little bit, excuse me, it's been a little bit underdone with the area of snow that is now broken out through central Pennsylvania. Uh, uh, State College to Pennsylvania Weather Service office put out a statement a little while ago pointing out that this is all moderate to heavy snow that's falling in there, and it's moving to the east. So that that area has to hold together as it moves to the northeast. And one other point I would make that you brought up in terms of the wind direction. The winds up until a little while ago. I think I didn't check on the latest. We'll see what they are doing at 1 o'clock. The winds are actually still more southwest than they are south, and that is actually, believe it or not, that's actually holding the cold air in. Southwest winds this time of year are not, depending on the circumstance, and in this particular circumstance, because you've got the what's left of the cold high up to the northeast. Southwest winds do not do a good job of warming things at the lower levels of the atmosphere. You have to wait for that wind to bend around to south, or as you said, south southeast, which is going to happen late this afternoon or this evening along the coast, and that brings in the change over to rain. Plus, you've got warm air that's coming in from the west that's pushing a rain snow line across the western part of Pennsylvania. So everything seems to be going according to plan. I'm just kind of just keeping my eye on this area of precip here that the models are not handling very well. Whether that might mean an extra enhancement once that gets in here, say after into New Jersey after 2 o'clock, and maybe making it to New York City by about 3:30 or 4 o'clock this afternoon. So you're sort of balancing everything here. You got to keep things in a perfect balance between holding that southwest wind before it turns to the south, and it's also limiting in terms of how much snow you're going to wind up with because you essentially run out of time.
Right. This is a very progressive system, and it looks like whatever we get must come over the next 6 to 8 hours because probably by mid or late evening, a lot of this is going to begin winding down and petering out. And Joe, whatever happened to that? We were talking earlier the week. Oh, this definitely looks like a Miller B secondary low setup. Whatever happened to that secondary low? It is not a player at all in this
No,
situation
the
for us.
primary took a beer and went to Green Bay, which is for the Packers. Although the Packers are, I believe, they're playing in Frisco. But yeah, the low is up in northern Lake Michigan. The primary is. We had models going back days ago. We're trying to kind of take this low more along the lines of, say, northern Ohio up into western New York, and in reality, it's going to wind up going up near Lake Huron and moving to the east. So you're going to get that redevelopment probably somewhere in the Gulf of Maine later tonight and into tomorrow, and then that moves the whole system out to the east. So in some ways, it also, by the way, is a little bit of a weaker low. It's 1,000 millibars on the 18Z 3 kilometer NAM. So that's probably helping matters to an extent because you're not getting a big screaming warming south wind running up ahead of it. And there's your 3 kilometer NAM going through this afternoon. That hole tries to fill in after about 3 or 4 o'clock. But I want to keep an eye on those echoes that are down to the south, down in Maryland and moving into Delaware to see what that stuff does as it moves up to the northeast.
Yeah, that's gonna, as I said, very progressive. And then once we get this out of here, tomorrow, on the backside of that developing or evolving second system in the Gulf of Maine, moving through the Maritimes, we'll start seeing the winds rev up, although not quite as strong. as what we have seen during the last couple of wind episodes. I really don't think tomorrow we're going to have to worry about any kind of advisory or the criteria falls short of a wind advisory tomorrow. But the winds will become quite active again during the afternoon hours, probably tomorrow into tomorrow evening behind this whole mess. And it looks like after we get past this tonight, we could be in for a long-term stretch of dry weather from tomorrow all the way out through the end of next week, with the next storm potential or the next precipitation potential probably not until next weekend.
I was looking at the 10 o'clock tonight, which by then the back edge of the precip is just about done. There's a kink in the isobar off the Jersey coast, south of Long Island. So that's probably where your secondary is starting out. And it'll really become more evident once it gets north and east of Cape Cod. Maine will do fairly well. New Hampshire, Vermont, interior, Massachusetts, northern Connecticut, northwest Connecticut that's all snow up there. Here's a couple of close-up radar shots, by the way. I've got the uh, radar from State College, Pennsylvania. So you see that solid area of moderate snow that is just about getting to York, PA, and just west of Harrisburg. Now, where you see the yellow, west of Altoona, back toward Latrobe, that's rain. And it was snow up near Du Bois. I don't know if they've changed over yet. We'll have to wait. After 1 o'clock, we'll get the observation. And I'll jump over to the Dover radar now. Joe, just keep your eye on the chat to see if we got any questions going on.
Oh, yeah. Well,
So here's that area I was talking about, Joe, down in Maryland, and south of York, near Westminster, down to Baltimore and Washington. Looks like the back edge is just southwest of Washington. That's an area that the models have not really picked up well on, and it's moving to the northeast. So we'll see how that holds together. You see the western edge of that stick. At this point, Alan, the snow must be over with, uh, judging from what the radar looks like. So I'll go to the Fort Dix radar in New Jersey.
and Jason Berry just wants to let everybody know on the chat board it's begun snowing in Orange County. And JS says light coating in southeast Pennsylvania, southeast Chester County. Most of it melted off. Anything salted is just wet in the lull area right now, and we're waiting on the second burst, which you're talking about, Joe, to see what it does.
Right, and here's the stick now, just reaching New York City, moving into western Nassau County, the back edge. It's very narrow. Okay, you can see it. Literally, it's a stick of snow that has run out ahead, and you've got that hole right in here with a couple of patches here and there. And then you're starting to see the precip in that southern area that is moving on up to the east-northeast. And the Upton radar, and we'll jump over to that one. And that is OKX. OKX. And there you have it. So there's that stick there. You can see there's some snow aloft. And I'll take a look at the Philadelphia. I'm sorry, we'll go up toward Albany and see what they're up to. I think that's ENX for them. I'm still my brain is still functioning enough where I can actually remember these three-letter codes. A little bit of streaky snow showing up there aloft, but nothing of consequence yet. I always, anytime when you get these weather situations, Joe, I always say, if it starts snowing up in Albany, in southern Vermont, in western Massachusetts, in that area, when it starts snowing up there first, before it starts snowing down here, that's usually never a good sign. So at least this time around, we've got the stuff coming in from the southwest while the air is still cold enough.
Right, right. And again, I'm just checking to see if anybody else has any snow reports on the chat board here. And they seem to be actually conversing with each other, not really talking about anything.
Oh, yeah, they always do.
Ms. Spillanti talking about dew points in upper atmosphere needs to match temperatures up there to be fully saturated. Wonder what the SKU-T charts look like. Oh my goodness.
Oh no.
Joe, if you had to sit down and plot an adiabatic chart, could you do that? I,
Oh
I,
God, no! Come
I
on,
was in
Joe.
I was in Professor Getzelman's class back in the the mid '70s, and once I graduated, everything fell out of the back of my head.
Well, that's what it's supposed to do naturally.
I mean,
Yes.
all you have to do to anyone who goes on the Tropical Tidbit site, all you have to do is just put your cursor on a specific spot, press down on the left button, and you'll get your plot, your complete plot. You don't need to know your TTAAs and
No, no,
TTBBs.
no. Don't go down that particular road. Here's your from WPC, the 24-hour probability of at least 2 inches of snow, and let's use the 50. I think the 50% line is probably a good marker for how WPC sees this. I messed up the line to the south. Let me draw it again. But the probability, 50% probability of 2 inches or more is fairly high in this zone. So obviously, all of the interior areas just north and west of New York City, and go north and west of, say, somewhere between Philadelphia and Allentown are locked for at least 2. And I think you could bring the southern edge of that 2 inch line down to about New York City, to maybe just north and west of Philadelphia, close to Trenton, Philadelphia, and then going northwest from there. So that seems to be playing out. And in terms of specific numbers, in the northern Mid-Atlantic to southern New England, that lightest blue color you see, that's probably That's all less than an inch. That's a coating to at most an inch. And then you see the numbers start to pop up to 2, 3 inches across New York City, Long Island, northern New Jersey. There's a 5 inch print up there in northwest New Jersey, up the Hudson Valley, up 87. And for upstate New York, it looks like mostly a 4 to 8 inch snowfall amount for areas along and north of I-90, and then going east and east northeast from there through New England. So yeah, if this were a really active winter, the system would be kind of a yawner in a sense, particularly for areas up to the north. The northern areas have gotten a fair share of snow since this winter so far, kind of uneven because of the early snowstorm at the beginning of December. But listen, you play with the cards that you're dealt with, and this is the winter we've been dealt with, and you just take them as they come, one at a time.
Yeah, the Mary Skenkel,
Yeah, she's in
not
Hagerstown, I think.
not even a dusting in Western Maryland, underperforming here. And meanwhile, Danny Nunkomar is saying it is now beginning to snow in Queens, New York.
Oh, glory, hallelujah! Yes, yeah, it's for snow lovers. This is seasons like this are so very frustrating because of the fact that, and you and I have mentioned this many times, if we wind up with a below average snowfall year this winter, this will be back to back 2 winters in a row for the I-95 corridor. We want to make that clear. That we're talking about the urban areas of the I-95 corridor from Washington, Philadelphia to New York City to Boston. So there's a big difference once you go inland by not too many miles. But the 2 winters in a row of back-to-back below normal snowfall, that has not happened since 2006, 2007, and the winter of 2007, 2008. Okay, and there have only been 3 other individual below average snowfall years since 2000: 2001, 2002, 2011 and 12, and that's it. And last year. So if we get a below average snowfall winter this year, if it finishes up that way, it'll be back to back. And I bring that up because in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, you can find um, four winters in a row, and in fact, from 83 to 93 in New York, it's 10 winters in a row from 84 to for 93, 92, 93.
And don't forget,
It's 9 or
and don't
10 in a
forget that
row below average.
don't forget that we just a few days ago we passed the halfway point of meteorological winter. So this first half of meteorological winter, if you're a snow lover, hasn't been all that great. Let's put it out. What Central Park has now, how much? 2.8 inches or whatever? Uh,
Uh, Something like that.
something like that.
Yeah.
So I
That's right.
think
They need a tenth of an inch so it doesn't become the least snowiest winter on record if we don't see another flake or an ice pellet for the rest of the year.
well, that's not going to happen considering what's about to happen around the region. I'm sure that
Right. So
Central Park.
this will put it above the second snowy, the least snowiest winter too. So we're running up the charts in the top 10. Okay, so let's take a look at the longer range because I think there's still a lot going on. There's a couple of things that I want to bring up that have been talked about on the in the water holes around the weather internet, and I want to start with the stratosphere. I'm going to go way up into the stratosphere. We're going to go to 10 millibars.
Whoa.
Okay, okay, yeah, way up. Where Okay, so let me bring up the upper air on that and show you what's going on. Now, Dr. Judah Cohen follows this every day and he tweets about it, so I want to give credit where credit is due. And we have the polar vortex in the stratosphere. It's a very neat place in the stratosphere. There's one low and sometimes there's one high, and that's it. And in the summertime, it's just one big high. So it makes it easy in that respect because you're only looking at one thing. But hang on, I just want to make this a little bit smaller so we can see North America, and I'll center it on the screen, which it is. Okay. You can't see the times. I can't really get everything in here. So what you have, this is the polar vortex. It's stretched out northeast, southwest across across the polar region. There looks like there's a trough that extends down into eastern Canada and points south. And over the next 16 days, that polar vortex pulls up toward Siberia and just kind of locks itself away up there. Now, what folks have been saying about this is that this would be, if this is correct, and if this uh, look is correct, when you've got a really tightly wound polar vortex like this, all the cold air, all the Arctic air is wound tightly up way to the north. And unless you get like little, pieces that break off at the lower levels of the atmosphere, this is something that would probably lead you to a blowtorch pattern in the eastern part of the United States. However, there's no guarantee that what's happening in this part of the atmosphere above the tropopause, what happens up there does not always necessarily translate down to the bottom. If it doesn't couple with the bottom part of the atmosphere, then the bottom part of the atmosphere could go along its own way, and then you would be in much better shape with regards to snow. Now that being said, let's go down. Let's go downstairs, and I'll bring the jet stream up.
And while you're doing that, Joe, just let me quickly point out, I mentioned this on my own YouTube talk yesterday afternoon before I fell ill or went under the weather. But I point out on the experimental from Climate Prediction Center, the NOAA 3 to 4 week probability maps for the 1st through the 14th of February, all the way out to Valentine's Day, show here in the Northeast colder than normal, but also drier than normal.
They're still holding on to that.
And it's almost as if you could see how what they're suggesting is that they'll have the cold high north and across into the nation's midsection, kind of oriented on a southwest to northeast axis, and the storm track probably across the southeast or mid-Atlantic. And again, you've said that sometimes in a dry situation, this actually is good for us. But
for snow lovers, yes,
they're suggesting perhaps a storm track, an active storm track, taking a lot of these ripples or low pressure waves just off to the south of the tri-state area and points north. At least that's how it looks on the 3 to 4 week experimental. But it does show that continuation of unseasonably cold weather through the middle part of next month.
Yeah, and we'll see what the GFS has to say about this. And of course, I backed it up to Wednesday when we still had negative PNA. We had that trough that was out in the west. Let me just make the map just a little bit bigger for everybody. Let's see if that size works, and I think it does. Okay, very good. So here's your trough in the west. You've got the flattening ridge here in the east. That upper high that was off the southeast coast moves into the Gulf of Mexico and just starts to flatten out. And we've been seeing all week long this change in the flow across North America and beyond. Oh, I lost my cursor here. Oh boy, didn't want to do that. Where'd it go?
I don't know.
No, I lost my map here. I'm going to reload it. I want to be able to erase all this stuff, which I just did. All right, so let me see if I can bring this up again. Yep, there it is. Okay, good. Okay, it's my little toolbar that I need. So uh, this is from Wednesday to Saturday. You can see the change here with the upper air. The trough in the west continues to weaken and disappear. Suddenly, you've got a big ridge building up the Rockies, and then we have, of course, our weather system here moving through the eastern part of the United States. And a couple of things are happening in the longer range that I think are important. And one of the things that has been sorely lacking for a while is storminess out in the Atlantic. We often talk about the fire hose jet in the Pacific, which we don't have, and that's evident by the fact that you've got deep troughs and upper lows moving across. It's not this sort of straight line from Japan to Los Angeles in terms of the jet stream flow. But in the Atlantic, we've had this fire hose going from the East Coast straight out to Europe. And that's not good. If you don't have any traffic out there, there's nothing to slow systems down. There's nothing to perhaps set up situations where you can trap cold air in. Well, we're going to start having some traffic. We've got a low that's forming between the Canaries and the Azores, another low that's out along 40 West and about 30 degrees north. There's going to be yet another low that's going to try to develop off the southeast coast in the first half of this week. So weather systems are out there, and that's a good thing because that at least slows the flow down. And when we move the GFS forward, uh, you have this kind of split flow going into next weekend. Here's the next system on the GFS. You've got this cold flow across southern Canada. We're sort of on the edge of that cold flow. Traffic with a storm out northeast of Bermuda, troughing down at about 150 west out in the Pacific. So you're sending energy in, and that's really what we're going to be dealing with here. I don't happen to think this upper air pattern going forward is let me rephrase that. I don't want to say that it's bullish, but it's certainly not a bad pattern to have if you can get the jet stream in Canada to come down far enough south at times so that you can bleed in some of the cold air that's going to be trapped up here up in Canada. It's going to try and come down from time to time in the forms of highs going into eastern Canada. And if you can get the right track and you get the cold air to set up in the right way, I think there could be some opportunities here. And in fact, when we go all the way through, and now we're into the February 3rd is the last day on the GFS. This is not a warm look at all.
No.
Deep, not at all. This is a deep trough in the east, ridge up in the west. There's again that I'm not really focused so much on the blocking with the blocking high over Greenland. As long as we start seeing weather systems popping up in the Atlantic Ocean to kind of slow the flow down and keep the troughing in the eastern part of the United States, that will lend to some opportunities. And I would just caution everybody when you're looking at model runs from run to run, you're not necessarily going to see it show up immediately. And of course, when you look in the long range, you're going to see it take lows in all sorts of different places. Um, they're going to change from run to run based on what I've described.
I find it interesting that, exactly 1 year later, last year at this time, we were talking about the so-called fire hose in the Pacific, and now everything is switched around, and now the fire hose is now in the
Now
Atlantic
the
Ocean.
fire hose is in the Atlantic.
Yeah.
Well, even last year, to a large extent, the fire hose was in both the Pacific and the Atlantic because we kept getting these systems kind of moving in the fast flow, just going from west to east. Now the GFS has already changed from just a few days ago, which, by the way, the European and the Icon have been much better at gaining a handle on this. This next system, as you said, this whole week is going to be dry and and cold for the most part. The next low on the GFS. Now, you notice, by the way, at the end of the week going into Saturday, that cold high that is north of Lake Superior, and your low is in central Illinois. Well, as long as the northern part of the jet stream that's across Canada doesn't phase with anything that's going on in the south, that low that you're seeing is going to have to go more to the east in this direction. And I would contend that this may even be too far north. You could still wind up seeing the GFS has corrected from taking a low up into the northern lakes down into northern Illinois, and I suggest that it might even correct further by showing the low further south. You see how the low goes up into northern Ohio, southernmost Michigan, starts to redevelop out to the east. The cold air is trying. I'm at next Sunday. Looks like it has it snow just inland of the coast. I think you're going to start seeing these. I think you're going to see this shift further south in subsequent runs. The question in my mind, Joe, is going to be this big high to the north. Is it going to be able to bleed down enough cold air southward? That, I think, is going to be the important question here.
Well, of course, now we're talking about next weekend, 7 days out. You just saw what our thinking was with this particular system at the beginning of this past week and how things changed gradually. So you're right. This is not going to be the final set in stone solution. This is obviously going to take some twists and turns. And you may be right, Joe. The cold air may win out this time. Uh, we'll just have to wait and see.
I got the Canadian up. Now, bear in mind, folks, this is the precip. This is just instantaneous precip here. It's not rain versus frozen, so it's going to show up. Everything's going to be green, so you're not going to see any of the snow on here because the map that's got the snow is not out far enough. But look where the Canadian has the low in northwestern Missouri. And it just kind of coils it northeastward into southern Indiana and begins to redevelop it in North Carolina and then takes it out over Chesapeake Bay off the coast of New Jersey and Long Island, and then it's kind of sitting there south of Nantucket as a 991 low. I'm just looking at the thicknesses. It doesn't look that it would have snow down to the coast, but again, the question's going to be that high to the northeast. Is it stronger? Is the cold air going to be more important? And I don't think that we're going to see that show up until late in the game.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's then again is the Canadian. Why don't you take a look at the take a look at the Japanese model?
Oh, no, no, no! I'm not that. I'm not doing that. I have my standing joke for when I'm on when I see weather posts from weather boards and people start pulling up the JMA. I'm thinking, that's usually at the point when there's such desperation
They're
when it.
scraping the bottom of the barrel.
Right. I did bring up the new. This is the new European that's running out now. It's only out to 72 hours. And just to show you the Europeans' snowfall forecast amounts, it's giving New York City 3 inches, Yonkers 3.7, 4 inches plus up the Hudson Valley into Connecticut, just under 5 at Stamford, just under 5 at Danbury. Looks like 4 inch amounts up in northwest New Jersey. So the European, at least today, is. It didn't really change very much from last night. And we thank the folks from pivotalweather.com there it is, pivotalweather.com for the use of the maps.
Yeah,
So,
and it's very good on their part because, as you know, Joe, up until recently, to get, I mean, you could get on the internet the European and look at some of the bare bones information, but for the stuff that you really wanted to look at, precipitation amounts, snowfall amounts, it was always very, very difficult to do that or to get that. But now, thanks to Pivotal Weather, you can get it.
yeah, and the European, which is run by the model is with a private company. I think my understanding is they released the copyright on a bunch of those maps. So they would be shareable. So I wanted to at least give credit where credit is due here. So we're back on the screen together.
Yeah, I'm sorry
And
I've been bouncing around or moving around here, but
all right, so now that we're back on the screen together, that means I can actually monitor the chat as well. So that's a good thing. We've got a 135 folks on the Saturday afternoon, which is actually pretty good because it's a Saturday afternoon, and I'm not snowing yet here. By the way, I'm out in Suffolk County, so it's not quite up out out my way. So if you guys, anybody's put in any questions early on in the chat, you want to throw them up now, we'll be able to see them. Nice to see everybody on board as always. The regulars are all here. John Wick 825 says freezing rain in St. Charles, Maryland. So you've gone over. And Scott Donegan points out that 2 years ago we had 70s in February, and then one storm after another in March. Those are the famous the four Easters, which, by the way, Joe, was a Jeopardy question the other night, and they got it. They wrote the answer wrong.
I didn't see that.
Yes,
It was the
the answer was something to the effect of this period in March produced these storms named by the fact that the storms are coming from this direction. And the correct question is what is a nor'easter? But the answer is wrong. The answer said that it's from where the storms are coming from. They don't come
no,
from the northeast.
exactly. The wind,
The winds come from the northeast.
right.
So I don't know if anybody got the actual question right, but the answer was wrong. Moderate snow, says Christopher, where he is in Queens in 23. The cold air is really trying very hard to hold on here.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough. I think Joe, we won't see a significant change in the wind from southwest to southeast or south, excuse me, until after that first stick goes on by. That stick is acting kind of like a warm front, I think, even though the
Probably,
national, even though the folks at the National Weather Service are not plotting it as a warm front. It has to be something.
maybe
Uh,
some kind of trough that the
a
trough
trough,
is. Well,
something. Yeah,
you know what? Let's look at here's a way to deal with it. I'm going to uh, my buddy, by the way, my one of my snow removal guys down in South Central PA, Wayne McDade, who's in not too far from Harrisburg, says the snow is picking up in intensity again there. Michael Piero watching northern New Jersey in Bergen County says it's the stick is going through there right now. And meteorologist Bill Goodman, who I got in touch with earlier today, maybe trying to get him on the live stream. I asked him if he was among the land of the living, and he says we are among the forecasters. So so he's busy. I'm going to pull up the obs here. Hang on a second. I don't know if the 1 o'clocks are probably not all in yet, but by the way, we still have blizzard warnings up in North Dakota, eastern South Dakota, western Minnesota. Winter storm warnings still going on throughout much of the rest of Minnesota, western Wisconsin, most of Iowa. Winter weather advisories for the rest of Wisconsin and western Michigan. And then, of course, we know what's going on up here with the 28 at Central Park on the hour. So probably on the 1 o'clocks. Let's see what they got. Uh, Light snow, 3/4 visibility at Central Park at 1 o'clock. LaGuardia 1 mile. Newark 3/4. Teterboro 1/2. Now, interestingly, Joe, the winds south at Central Park is south at 12, but there's buildings not too far from there. But LaGuardia is southwest at 20. Kennedy southwest at 16. Newark southwest at 12. Teterboro southwest at 17. Moderate at Teterboro. Look at these temperatures too. Newark is 23, Teterboro 25, LaGuardia 28, Park is 27, but Kennedy now, because of the southwest wind, is up to 30. So that at least lends to the argument that the immediate south shore of Long Island might see some of the numbers tapered down a bit. Okay, so I got 1 o'clock obs here. I want to look in New Jersey. after um, uh, the stick went by, the winds in South Jersey right now are light and variable. They're either calm or light east or southeast. They're just all over the place. Moderate in Sussex County, 3/4 at Linden, 3/4 at Somerville, a quarter of a mile at Caldwell. Teterboro, as I said, a moderate, and 3/4 at Newark. Philadelphia is 29 with a south wind. Allentown is light and variable. See, that's the thing. If you've got a light and variable wind, that'll slow the warming. So that'll be another clue. And I'll just jump now down to let's go to Mount Holly.
And while you're doing that, quickly, Joe, Hudson Valley, Montgomery, Orange County Airport, 20 degrees, dew point 4, and
Oh,
calm winds, just overcast. Monticello, Sullivan County, they have light snow there at 16 degrees. The dew point is 11. The winds are southeast at 10. Poughkeepsie, Dutchess County Airport, 21, dew point 3, calm winds. And Newburgh, Stewart is 19, calm winds, overcast, no precipitation at this
yeah,
time.
those dew points are helping. Lancaster is 1 mile in Pennsylvania on and 27 with a dew point of 19 and a wind of south at 12. Everybody in Pennsylvania, in eastern Pennsylvania, the wind is either south or southeast. And I'll go to one more spot. I'm going to go to central PA because we're watching the rain snow line from there. And it'll bring up their obs. And then we're going to wrap it up. Okay. Freezing rain in Baltimore, 31. Hagerstown, freezing rain there. So they've lost it. And one more jump further to the north. And here we go. So Harrisburg. Erie just changed from freezing rain back to snow, and they're 3/4 there. But that's Erie, Pennsylvania. They get 150 inches a year.
On the chat board, we have inventor Lee Wheelbarger or Barger, 1/2 inch of snow at National Harbor, just south of DC, currently 32 degrees.
Okay, Altoona is mixing in 25. So there's your rain mix line. I'm trying to see what Latrobe is. Uh, Pittsburgh is light rain in 33. Uh, Beaver County is 34 with rain. Uh, Franklin is flurries in 31. Where is Latrobe? They
It's in
were.
Pennsylvania.
I know that, but I can't find the ob. Du Bois is still snowing there and 26. Bradford's 1 mile, 22. Altoona, as I said, 25 with mixed precip being reported. Light snow, 1 mile at Williamsport and 23. Harrisburg, 3/4 visibility at Harrisburg, so they're almost moderate there, and 28. Scranton right now, just some flurries. They were moderate there, but they're 23 with flurries, so the stick has gone by them. 3/4 at Mount Pocono. Allentown, light snow, no visibility given, so it's on the light side. It's very light. And Queen City, Allentown is also light snow, 23 and 25 there, respectively. So the cold air is doing a good job of trying to hold on.
Yeah, southwest, believe it or not, southwest winds at 12, gusting to 25 at Danbury Municipal Airport in Connecticut. Still overcast up there, 23, and a dew point of 2.
Two. And let's see, Jay in Kenneth Square in Pennsylvania said light snow starting back up there. So maybe that we're starting to see the radar fill in a bit. Just really quick, I'm just pitching up the radar. I mean the radar's really the stick is holding up. Then the gap. There's a little bit of stuff trying to pop up in between, and then you got that main area that is coming along. So I think we'll wrap it up here, Joe. It's coming up on 1:20, and we both need a break for the rest of the day.
Yeah, lunchtime.
So,
Lunchtime.
so look, let's do this. If it turns out that there isn't too much to talk about in the longer range tomorrow, maybe we'll take tomorrow off instead of today. Does that work for you? So
Yeah,
there'll
so,
be so we won't do a coffee with Cioffi tomorrow.
okay.
Does that
So we'll be
work?
back on Monday. Yeah.
And we'll be back on Monday. If it looks like there might be something worthwhile to talk about, I'll message you in the morning and we'll go from there.
All righty. Well, we had a nice little crowd here at midday today. Almost a spur of the moment uh, telecast, I guess, right?
Yeah, it was. I was running a couple of errands this morning, and I said, let's see if we could shoot for something for 12:30, and we did it. So thanks
We did.
everybody for being here. Let me just give a couple of shameless self promotions. So make sure you download the free weather app, which you could use anywhere in anywhere. You don't have to just be in our neck of the woods. East New Jersey, New York City, Long Island, Southern Connecticut, and the Hudson Valley. You can use it anywhere to get your local forecast, and you can also read my analysis, and you can download the free app on Google Play or on the App Store. It's Meteorologist Joe Cioffi. That's what it's called. And I've got links all over the place on my website, meteorologistjoecioffi.com, and on it goes. And for those of you who want a more complete 24/7 weather experience, as many of the folks that are on the chat board today are part of my weather platform on Patreon. That's patreon.com/meteorologist Joe Cioffi. That's just $2 a month. And that goes a long way, by the way, to keep the apps free and keep ads on the app to an absolute minimum. And you get extra live streams on Patreon for Patreon members, and also extra weather posts. There's all sorts of extra stuff that I do. So do consider it in making it part of your weather world. And you can always support what we're doing by shopping on my link on Amazon, which is on the descriptor of this live stream or the descriptor of this video. We're a participant in the Amazon Services LLC program, which is an affiliate advertising program designed for us to be able to earn fees from Amazon and its affiliated sites. So you shop, you buy, you get your stuff, and then Amazon throws me a little bit of coin. So I can get a couple of cigars every once in a while. So have a great day. Joe, have a great afternoon, and we'll see you, if not tomorrow, we'll see you on Monday.
Yes, sir.
All right, take care.
Good one.